I call the Honourable Minister Phil Heatley. Talofa lava.
Pick up from the Honourable Anne Tolley's message about using taxpayer funds so very, very much better. And I would like to talk about a policy that the Labour Party is nowhere near, but about a third of 1 million New Zealanders are right up against, and that's the insulation of private homes owned by homeowners or those owned by rental properties, and clearly tenants are in. And that's that insulation program where over 150,000 now families have actually picked up, average of 3 people in a household, so about 450,000 New Zealanders now benefit from. And what happened was, when we came into government, the National Party came into government, John Key asked his officials, what are the 2 or 3 things that we can do which will change New Zealanders' lives instantly and also create jobs? And we came out with this home insulation scheme. So the deal essentially is that the government will pay for a third of the insulation of houses if families can front up with 2/3. And the Green Party, of course, I acknowledge them, came on board. And now what we've got is, we had announced it back there that over 4 years we would put in about a third of $1 billion and insulate about 188,000 homes across New Zealand. And the Green Party was part of that, and I certainly acknowledge them. The reality is that the government of the day, the National Party, stumped up with a third of $1 billion, and we're well on the way of insulating those 188,000 homes. So that's a good thing. Come this budget, I myself, as Minister of Energy and Resources, looked at the figures, and what has actually happened, and Anne Tolley will be interested in this, is that we have managed that out of that fund to be able to extend that to 230,000 houses, not 188,000, but we think we can probably do about 230,000 houses with the same amount of money. In other words, an extra 41,000 houses funded out of that fund. Now, would the Labour Party, well, first of all, the Labour Party wouldn't have thought of doing it, but would they have got that cost effectiveness? Is there anyone in New Zealand who would argue that the ability of us to, instead of out of that amount of money, a third of $1 billion, get 188,000 houses, actually the efficiencies that we've driven and the sector have driven and the people that have installed it have driven to get an extra 41,000 houses out of the same amount of cash? Can anyone argue against that? I don't think so. So what are we going to get? Instead of over 4 years, 188,000 houses, we're going to get into sort of 6 to 9 months into a 5th year, a total of 230,000 houses. That is fantastic value for money. Fantastic value for money. But I want to inform members about something humorous, and this doesn't sort of go to the Green Party because they supported us in that, is that Labour said, we would have done that. We would have done that. 9 years in government they didn't, but they said we would have done that. To make it worse, can I tell the New Zealand public about something pretty interesting, and that is, we're insulating private homes, right? And private rentals. Did you know that state houses are insulated? Did the Speaker know, did the New Zealand public know that not all state houses are insulated? In other words, after 9 years in government, the Labour Party didn't even insulate their own homes. The government's own homes aren't even insulated. By the end of next year, we will have insulated every single state home in the country that could be insulated, and the Labour Party, after 9 years in government, had state house tenants living in uninsulated homes. And yet when the National Party make the announcement that they're going to insulate private homes, the Labour Party says, we would have done that. disgrace. Now, can I say that we don't agree with the Green Party in most things? We don't agree with the Green Party in most things. But I can tell you, when I'm talking about the two-faced attitude here in home insulation, where they say...
Yes, I know what the member's going to say. The member is referring to the words that we don't actually hear, and he cannot get around the use of that word by a circumlocution, which the member is trying to do. So the member will withdraw.
I withdraw.
Thank you.
And apologise. Mr Speaker, the point I'm making here is that I don't agree with the Green Party on a whole bunch of things, but at least they've got some honesty around this. So by the end of next year, under this government, we would have insulated every single state house in New Zealand that can be insulated and that we can track down, and we will have insulated about 230,000 private houses across New Zealand. And that is a stunning, stunning promise. Mr Speaker, I'm also fascinated about the odd story that turns up in the media about old, cold and mouldy state houses. Can I reiterate, as I did in the last term of government over 3 years, virtually every month over the last 3 years as Minister of Housing, I've said this and I will say it again. We have about 70,000 state houses across New Zealand. Somewhere between a quarter and a third of them are in the wrong place, wrong suburb or wrong town, or they're of the wrong size. In other words, they're 3-bedroom houses when actually we need 1-bedroom houses and 6-bedroom houses. And thirdly, they're in a poor state of disrepair. In other words, they're old 1940s and 1950s state houses and they're uninsulated. So when we came into government, a third and a quarter of state houses in New Zealand were either in the wrong place, were of the wrong size, or are in very poor condition. So to the New Zealand media, we know, and that's why we're trying to, we are insulating them. That is why we're going through developments like in Tamaki and bowling old houses and rebuilding new ones, Mr Speaker. That's why we introduced reviewable tenancies, so that state house tenants are no longer in a state house for life if they don't need one. So if I got into a state house with a family of 6, and then 30 or 40 years later under the Labor Party, I'm a single person rattling round in 5 bedrooms, all the while there's a desperate family on the waiting list, well, that changes under us. That changes under us, Mr Speaker. But I'll tell you this, out of interest, the Labor Party opposes everything we're doing in state housing. So we insulate all the state houses, they're against it. We do redevelopments where we better use the land and we upgrade all the state houses and bowl the old ones and build the new ones. In Tamaki, they're against it. In Farmers Crescent, they're against it, Mr Speaker. And what we do is we say, hey, if you don't need a state house, you can no longer have it for life. Someone else on the waiting list should get it. The Labor Party opposed that, Mr Speaker. So it doesn't matter where you turn, the Labor Party oppose National Party policies, even when it blindingly makes good sense. So, Mr Speaker, I put on the record that yes, the state housing stock needs serious upgrade. Yes, we need the right type of houses, and yes, we need to insulate them all. The previous Labor government did none of that in 9 years. We have to do it. That's why people are in state houses in poor condition. That's why people are on the waiting list. And Mr Speaker, I'm proud to be part of a budget that actually starts addressing those issues. And as we insulate state houses across the country and private houses across the country, can I thank members in the House, can I thank the Green Party, can I say to the Green Party, if ever you're in government with the Labor Party, please, please, please repeat these messages. The main one being is that insulation of housing is good. Start at home with your own stock you know, the state housing stock and extend it to the private housing stock. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call the honourable member